grew up in the Pennsylvania foothills in a mixed society of Indians and whites and became expert in all the woodland crafts. He was never lost in the great forest and for years made his living as an illegal hunter deep in the mountains where his tools were European but his techniques were Indian. After a decade of dodging Shawnee war parties, Boone was emboldened to move his whole family west through the Cumberland Gap, where they would have been the first white family in Kentucky.
It was in the fall of 1773 that Boone undertook to guide his family to journey through the mountains, through the wilderness, to establish a permanent settlement. That was the goal. They traveled well until they got to the Powell Valley.
The party was going through, headed for the Cumberland Gap. Daniel Boone's son, James Boone, and a couple of his friends were sent back to get supplies from a fort. And so therefore they were in a smaller party, and they were attacked and scalped and tortured all night. I mean, just really.
All killed in an early morning raid. I think one or two people survived to tell the story.
Finally, the settlers came back, found the bodies, buried them in a mass grave, and a lot of them turned back and went to North Carolina and just said, no more.
In the early spring, Boone is out hunting alone, and he is back down in the general vicinity of this place on this creek where these people were killed and hastily buried. And so Boone went to visit the grave where his son was buried. And there were signs that wolves and other animals had been digging at this grave. And so he reburied them, piled rocks on top of the grave to keep the animals away, and then spent the night crying, grieving, moaning. And it was, the weather was terrible, and the descriptions just show this forlorn father, a very human person, not a mythic figure, who had lost his son.
When the first settlers came to this area, of course, they were Native Americans here, Cherokee and the Shawnee, and the Native Americans